And in the midst of, even if whatever your worst nightmare is for, like, oh, whatever the worst nightmare is for what could happen, what our world could look like a year from now, and perhaps what your life might look like, the ramifications of the change. Can you find this that's untouched by it? This that's not going to be different a year from now. And just notice what's here now. What's the experience in the body right now? Is it absolute peace here? Is there absolute peace and rest and okayness? Or is there some contraction, some stress, tightness? And then can you discern somatically in the midst of what's here now? Can you find this that is just okay, at peace? Can you find the peace that is here, the okayness that is here? Or maybe it's just the awareness and presence that's here. And then also perhaps somatically, there's the contraction, the tightness, maybe a little anxiousness, some boredom. Maybe there's some boredom. Let's have some fun. Or thoughts about the day, a little bit. Can you find the ability to discern both almost conceptually outside of the body, or wherever you're noticing the thoughts, the parts that arise? And maybe there's awareness of that. And if there's awareness of that as an object, as a thought, as a part, and then there's this that is aware of it, that's untouched by it. Or it can all happen even more viscerally, somatically. You notice the emotions, kind of the responses to the thoughts, the responses to the parts in the body. When you think about the world a year from now, under either president in the US. And then there's this that's untouched by it. Can your system discern somatically between the two, thematically between the background and foreground? You find somatically this that is untouched, and then the emotions or contractions. All right, that's my question for us this morning, and then let's just go where that's just my thought. Whatever goes comes, and whatever here for everybody. Who wants to go first?
Housekeeping.
Housekeeping, Dave. Thank you for the reminder.
Dave in compliance.
I am not a psychotherapist. I am a mediator, and so this isn't the EIFS of psychotherapy. And if anyone's good, friends and colleagues exploring together, everybody's good, being responsible for their own journeys. If I could get a thumbs up, please. And and I'm recording this, and it might be shared for others that are interested, but only my image, never yours. But the audio of yours might be shared. If I can get a thumbs up, if everybody's good with that. All right. What's going on? How was that? What did that bring up? What we just explored, or is there what's going on? Dave, did you want to roll with that, or?
Sure. It's interesting. There's a part of me that, kind of walks around and makes breakfast and does that, thinking part. And, there's like 4 appendages that flap around in my viewscape that have been around since I can remember anyway. And then there's a part of me that when I look for it, I don't find any, like, I don't find a thing like an appendage or a thought processing device. I just find openness, and that doesn't change. I mean, it can't change. Well, there's really no time attached to that, and there's no location, and it's just kind of like wide open acceptance, wide open awareness. And I mean, I do get caught up. You know, I think about what would happen when, you know, if things change in the US, you know, in Canada, oh my God, like politics and all of that. And that definitely can change the world, and it can change my, you know, my living situation. But my actual kind of true nature never changes. It's always just wide open, kind of the same all the time, clarity. You know, I look back looking to find Dave, and I don't find a Dave. I find openness. I find acceptance. I find awareness. Does it make life any easier? I mean, it's nice to know that, you know, my true nature is wide open awareness. Do I still feel, you know, emotions? Yes. Do I still feel pain when I hit my thumb with a hammer? Fuck yes. But, you know, do I also have this perspective of looking from awareness? Yes. Does that make life easier?
Darn.
He froze.
Yeah.
Let's see where.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
froze, Dave.
And what?
Oh, you froze. We didn't hear you.
For at least the last
Oh,
30 seconds. He said, does that make life easier?
easier.
And then everything
Yeah.
froze. Was like really easy.
All right. And it's probably relevant for what I was saying. Does it really matter what I say? You know, I come from wide open awareness, and there's no separation between that and real life, or I call it, you know, whatever, like inside and outside, there's no separation. So, yeah.
Oh, just that, Dave. Just kind of the integration of that into kind of real life, living life for all of us, the inside and out, the two simultaneously. How's that going? Like in the midst of thinking about a year from now and whatever your kind of worst case situation might be, and thinking about the politics, or, you know, where David says, we saw what his response was to this. It's my question is, how does your system kind of be both of those, the inside and the outside? You said there's this wide open acceptance, there's this awareness, clarity, the sameness all the time. That's always okay. It's like where there's not even a Dave, there's just this openness. And at the same time, there are all these thoughts about, oh, well, what could happen? How this could affect my life? How this could affect the world? How does it make sense of both?
Well, I don't even know if that's a relevant question. I'm not saying your question isn't good, but to actually process the question, because they're not separate. When I get caught up in the world of Dave, when I get caught up in, you know, stuff going on, that side of, you know, that kind of, awareness is always there. It's always there, but it's almost like I don't. I mean, I don't access it. I don't acknowledge it. I kind of get caught up in the world of Dave, and then I remember, oh yeah, right. And then, you know, openness is found,
So where is it? Because this is to me, it's the interesting edge. That when we get caught up in the world of Dave, and then we kind of then we remember it, and it's accessed again. This perfect okayness, this openness. How does that happen in your system? Does it, and how long does it take to come back to the awareness that the openness is here? Does something recognize, oh, I'm blended, I'm identified, and then once it becomes aware of that, it shifts back, or does something occur? What is it? How does the mechanism work?
Well, it's kind of like I use my mind to go to a place of no mind. So I think, oh yes, I remember there's this thing called awareness, and then that, then I'm accepting openness. It's never gone away. It's always there. But when I get caught up in daily life, sometimes I just touch base with openness. I kind of I use the phrase step back, step back and acknowledge awareness. And, it's still there, doesn't change. It's always the same.
How about this question? Maybe for all of us, and I want to hear I'm curious where Dave goes with this. It's like, what's the edge? What's the next edge in our openness, in our realization, in our abiding, in our integration, in the immanence, in all of this? As we're hearing from Dave, there's both, and we hear sometimes there's a back and forth to the parts to Dave, and then it kind of shifts back. For him, it just steps back to this awareness of what's of the background of the openness. And it's, for some, there's a sense of they come together. For others, there's a sense of it's just more abiding in the openness. Like, what is it for each of us? And that's my question for you, Dave, as you describe all of this. Like, what's the interesting edge as far as, like, when we speak to Dave 3 months from now, what might be different in how this all works together?
I don't see it changing. I mean, I still have to, have food disappear into my kind of single eye to keep me alive. There's a thing I do for money. I mean, this, I think, is my job. But the thing I do for money, I still have to do that. And that requires an involvement in the world of Dave, in the physical kind of world. I call it the physical world.
So not leave it, because you know what my perspective is on this. It's the both. It's fully the both and it's fully the embracing of the world of Dave, the world of Sid, the world of David and Jack. But I also find that there are these, like, I like using the word tipping points, or an IFS updating. Something learns, something becomes more subtle, something opens as we, as you're doing your headless way work, and as you're meeting with us and doing your other explorations of what you consider your real job. Like, do you have a sense or a forecast or a prediction? Like, if you were speaking to some kind of aspect of Dave that kind of knows or sees, it's like, what's the next updating in Dave's system with all of this?
I think it would be, I mean, to try to predict from here, I would say it would be more of an integration, more kind of awareness in life and life in awareness. So that, the two are in the forefront together.
Beautiful.
But again, I'm placing I'm the world of Dave. Yeah, I'm going to grow older and die. I was born and I'll die. It's like kind of one thing. I have a life in between. Awareness never changes. That inner openness is without time and place. So I'm using kind of time and place to predict in the future, kind of from this one life. asking what it's going to be like a place of no time. Well, that'll still be the same, from right here. It's not going to change. I kind of think perhaps what will change is the Dave. And maybe that's just being more open to openness, if that makes sense.
So, got the world of Dave, and then the sense of the place of no time. And then Dave describes, well, maybe more integration, more in the future, maybe more life and awareness, more awareness in life, and that the place of no time isn't going to change. It will always be the same, but what will likely change is the world of Dave. Just for all of us, how does that play? The world of Jack, like Jack in time, his parts, his personality, David in time, parts and personality, and then that Dave calls the place of no time, this beingness that doesn't change. And then as we all hear that, sorry.
Oh, sorry, there's just one other thing. I just before we move on, I'm also trying to use a brain, which is very limited in many ways, to try to understand itself. So my tools are limited in, I think it's using a language, using deduction, using a brain, all that kind of stuff is kind of limited. And so in trying to describe openness and awareness, it's like a dog getting in the back seat of the car that goes to the park. Every time he gets in the back seat, it goes to the park, and he knows that's the law of life. It's kind of the same. I feel that way. I'm using my brain to try to understand openness and awareness.
Beautiful. So that's my question for all of us. Just like as Dave says, what's trying to understand this? What's listening? Because he's describing a limited brain that's trying to make sense of all of this. And we relate to that. And let's open up to comments in just a minute. And then the last thing is, as he's describing the world of Dave, like, how do we see the world of Dave, our friend Dave? Like, it's just like awe, wonder? Are we just like, wow, what's going to happen next in the world of Dave? It's like your favorite TV show. It's like, what's the next, what's going to happen? What's coming next week? And do we just love this character, Dave? And do we also have, but what's like for all of us, the character Jack, the character David, the character Sid? We're just like, oh, like, what's going to happen next? Because we know we're here in time, and we're, there's this that's happening. Is it awe? Is it wonder? Is it curiosity? Is it love for this character? And then to notice what else comes up, like the shoulds, the critics, the spiritual achievers that kind of go like, this world of Dave should be different. We want him to be more like that headless way guy. And just like notice just the parts that say all of that. What's coming up, guys, as we hear Dave give us this beautiful satsang?
Well, I had a really interesting thought that, like, in whatever, like, post, human life phase this is, I'll still be David at the essence, right? But like all of this stuff that we talk about, being in the narrative self and whatever, like, how much of this stuff that's so much a part of my day-to-day life will be gone and won't be missed at all, and I'll just be in this whatever, transcendent blissful state that is unweighed down by all of this bullshit, right? Like how much of this stuff is completely unnecessary, and to what degree can I just enter into that now? Right.
Yes. So how about that? That you're describing, this David's essence, that is just where in David's essence, all of the stuff that's happening in time, all the personality stuff, all the history, it's just like there's something that just kind of transcends or is untouched by that. And how much can you enter into that now? I think that's just such a sweet question for all of us. How much can we enter into this place where we're kind of untouched? It just there's there's like I think Rupert calls it like a loving indifference towards all of this that occurs in time. All of David that's happened, David's life. There's like a loving indifference towards it, and we're just being in that fulfillment, that essence, that perfectly okayness. How about that, David? What are you able to access of that?
It's like there's so many machinations and ups and downs and thoughts and emotions about what's going to happen or what might happen or what I think's going to happen. And then like something of significance that I've been thinking about or worrying about or excited about happens, and maybe it's different than I thought or worried, and it's a relief, but it's like why none of those roller coasters of thoughts and emotions were actually necessary. Like I guess that's part of what's magical about accepting what is. If you quit worrying about what could be and you just accept what is, then you're taking things as they actually come versus your imagination of what could happen or go wrong or what would happen. I mean, like when you ask the question about like, depending on who gets in office in the American presidency, whatever, like that's kind of more abstract than like what's going to happen with my job in a year, right? Because that would be a more direct effect. Like unless it gets to where there's violence in the streets in my city or something, and or there's power outages or something where it's directly affected me, the presidency is like it's sort of like nothing that's happened in the presidency in my lifetime is like really affected whether I'm going to have a roof over my head or have food on the table. You know what I mean? So that's easier to be as abstract. So when you brought that up at the beginning of the call, I just was able to stay right in peace and tranquility. You know what I mean? But I'm worried about whether I'm going to have money in my checking account when the next debit comes through. That can affect my physiology and my my stress levels a lot more directly, right?
I think this is
But
where it
at the
gets
end of the day, it's
good.
all sort of a game, right? Like it's all you could do is the actions you can take to change it. Feeling stress and worrying about it is not going to actually move the needle most of the time. So if I can figure out how to not be moved by all that, then it's going to be a happier life, right?
This is awesome. We got to keep diving into this. What David's bringing up, the roller coaster, what the game is, and but Jack, you had something. Were you raising your hand or waving to? Maybe you were waving to
I was
somebody.
waving because you all froze and I couldn't tell if it was just
Oh,
you all froze for me or everybody froze. So I was trying to move because if people sit like this, it's kind of hard to tell if they froze or not.
Right.
Like that. So that was my attempt to understand what was going on from a
God. Well,
technical standpoint.
technical. Thank you. The David, just the sense of there's a roller coaster. There's a roller coaster of life. We all know this roller coaster, right? And in a way, we don't want to get entirely off the roller coaster. I mean, like remember kids? We like love roller coasters. It's fun, and there's life and the roller. Like we don't, but then there's also this that isn't on the roller coaster. This
Well,
that
and
isn't
like
on the roller coaster.
when I hear people talk about detachment and stuff, it like makes me nervous because I'm afraid I won't be alive or like it would just be really boring if I was detached and unaffected,
Right.
right?
So this,
But
this,
that's
yes.
probably a lie or an illusion, right? Like if detachment means all that weight's off of you and you can just feel the beingness of now and like we feel in like a GAE, then hell yeah, detachment sounds great. But that's not how my brain thinks about detachment when I hear people talk about it.
Well, so just that, because that's what for me we were exploring with Dave. It's like the sense of because what you find in the GAEs, right? Like what is awareness and just this essence, this that is untouched, and then there's the fullness of life and time, the roller coaster. Then you said, like it's all a game. And like when we heard David say that, where did we go with that? So there can be the game of kind of managing the parts, managing our life and time. Like, hey, which roller coaster am I going to go on? Who's my partner going to be? And what's my job? What am I going to do with my money? How am I going to like maximize the experience of this life and time? oh, I'm gonna live at the beach, or I'm going to, go on these vacations, or I'm gonna buy these new clothes, or there's that game. And then there's also the game of the relationship between the two that Dave was describing to us. Like, so it's all a game. Where do you go with that, David? What's that for you? What is the game?
What's the game?
What's the game?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that right now. Like, I mean, the day-to-day, game of life and making decisions and making a living and navigating family issues or whatever, like that requires all of these, or doesn't require, but it involves all of these machinations of the narrative self and what I'm thinking, and then what I'm going to say, and then how someone reacted to what I said, and then I wish I would have said it differently, and then can this person just go away so I can sink into fundamental well-being?
Got it. Got it. And so what about this? Thinking about, because this is why, like, why do we come, well, for some of us, it just, maybe we've been doing it for years, for this, what we're calling spiritual or POK. Like, what is it that has us spend all this time on this, right? And it is it in a sense of, like, hey, we're wanting fulfillment or happiness or peace. And this is just a really interest for me. It's a really interesting question as far as what has us do this. And we found limitations to perhaps finding it through experience. And then, like, what is it that we're looking for in POK, in our spiritual work, and hanging out on YouTube with the non-dual folks? And is it, like, I loved hearing about David when you spoke of, but well, the politics, it's not going to be disastrous personally. Like, I'm going to be okay, whatever happens. But there is the possibility that I don't, at some point I might not have money in my bank account. If we can all relate to that, like when it becomes visceral for us. Or Jack's like, hey, I got enough money, I don't even worry about that. But it's like, or we have a serious health problem, or the people we love have serious health problems, right? It really gets bad in terms of our life. And then in those times, where do we find sanctuary peace? Is it all contingent on what happens in experience, or do we have this? It's like, for me, when I think of the game, I partly go there. Anything else, David, on all of this? And we'll kind of open it up and see where we go.
No, it's good. Thank you.
Thank you. What comes up? What's coming up, guys?
Jack, do you want to go first?
Well, what you asked to sort of get to Sid's question. What I've been playing with, is the best word to use, is I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Wilber Combs matrix or not. No, yeah.
Yes.
It's sort of a way of looking at your structure of development and the state you're in as a matrix, and where those cross is a sort of a different, you can look at it as a vantage point, I guess. So if you're rational and in the gross realm, you're thinking about rational stuff like, well, how am I going to do this, or science or whatever. If you're mystical and in the non-dual realm, you're communing with God so you can come back and kill the heathens that don't believe in your mythological. So anyway, but so all those spots in that matrix, right, have a worldview, right, a perspective. So people tend to have a center of gravity on that. And what's been recently added for me is the idea that there's the known, there's the realm you're in, if you will, and then there's the knower. So what I've been really consciously trying to do is move between as many of those cross points as I have access to, right? Or consciously move between them, or just notice when I move between them. And what that sort of does is, if I can come from a center of gravity of ideally like integral and non-dual, then those other realms can come up sort of included in that space, and I can experience them just like I it's not that I'm detached, it's more like I have to be careful. I would use the word non-attachment versus detached, and those mean two very different things to me.
Hey,
Go
hey
ahead,
Jack,
Sid.
so we can follow you clearer. Could you give us 3 examples of kind of points with their perspectives that are most interesting for you? Like maybe 3 of the most interesting edges that you move between amongst?
Oh, oh,
Are you,
well,
do you mean like in the Wilber Combs matrix, like red, blue,
well,
green kind of
that's the
stages?
up and down, but then there's also states which go across, and where those intersect. Okay, if you're an egocentric state of development and gross, a person who has that center of gravity would be Donald Trump.
Yeah, but not that.
That's an example.
But for you, like, or maybe what are the
Oh,
2 most interesting perspectives for you right now in the matrix? The 2 points that are most interesting for you.
well, stabilizing integral and non-dual is something that's getting easier and easier to stay
And what
stable.
is that? Describe that to us. Stabilizing the
Oh,
integral and non-dual.
okay. Integral is uh, seeing the diversity in things, but being able to prioritize them nonetheless. It's not stuck in integral is not stuck with the problem of there's so many different things out there, they're all equal. It doesn't think like that. It allows you to prioritize them, right? And then non-dual is when, well, there's various things that drop away as you get there. We talked about thoughts, right? So at one point, thoughts drop away as something you confuse yourself with, right? And then personality drops away as something you confuse your sense of self with. And then space and time drops away from something you confuse yourself with, right? And then the sense of individuality, that when people talk about awareness, when I talk about awareness or the witness, there's still a duality there of there's a witnesser and there's what witnesser. That falls away. That okay, wait.
Jack,
So then when you go to non-dual, all those have dropped away, and you're imputing, or the knower is this headlessness, which I think like that headless, yeah, that headless, where all those other things could arise, but you're not confusing your capital S self, I guess is what IFS would call it. You're not confused by them. You're not limited by them. Okay, so being in that upper right box up there in the Wilber comb, they're like stabilizing there. Okay, and then the fun ones are like, for me, are like rational gross, where I'm, thinking about adding a battery to my solar panel so that when the power gets cut off, I can still have refrigeration or so. I mean, like those kind of problems, because I spent a lot of my life in that rational system solving, electrical engineering kind of world. That's a habit I just go back to, and I enjoy that, right?
okay. Question.
Sure.
So we have there's the integral and the non-dual, and in the non-dual, from what I'm hearing, is there's a sense of stabilizing as self.
Oh, it's a sense of love.
Stabilized.
Because you are everything that's arising, it's a pure sense of love. In the same way you love yourself, you're loving everything. It's like that. That's a feeling.
And when is that? What's it like when that is here? How is that here for Jack now? How can
I
Jack
love you
glimpse the
guys.
non-dual right now?
I love you guys. I love you guys. I really do. Wherever you're at, whatever you're trying to tell me, I love it.
And how does this then how does it relate to like Dave kind of set up the scene for us of the sense of like the world of Jack, the world of Jack, and then this place of no time, to use Dave's language, or maybe the place of no time is just like the self, and then the world of Jack. How does that play in the non-dual?
Okay, it, it to get a sense of Jack, I would be in a gross realm or a subtle realm, because both of those have a real strong sense of Jack there. That's if I want to with people that call me grandpa, that's where I'll interact with them.
Can this happen from the non-dual?
That's the
Can
thing.
you be with your
It's all
grandkids
arising.
from
It's
there?
all transcended but included. So I like, as opposed to detached, I like transcended and included. That just feels more right to me than, oh, I'm detached, I don't care about anything. That's not the word I would use, right? So I would fear that. That's like, oh, detached, I'm pushing away from something. And that's not what it's about at all. Like pushing away is not what it's about at all. So I would use the word transcend and include. That's a very Wilberian kind of thing, but yeah.
Yeah. So how is it like
Mhm.
I'm hearing something very similar to what Dave was
Oh,
describing?
what I'm describing is very similar to what Dave and David were describing. I think it's just a little more fine grained in terms of looking for IFS parts in all those spots in the Wilber-Combs matrix. They're like, some of them are healthier than other ones, you know what I mean? And some lines of development are healthier than others. So like I may have, a magical part that was stuck in the stairs and is crying in the gross realm for a while that I can, go heal. And I've done that kind of thing. So that's one of the things I love about IFS is at least its eyes don't glaze over when you talk about going to different perspectives. They call it parts, but yeah.
This you brought up so much, Jack, for me. Part of the integral, like evolving up the sort of stages or levels, stages of development are like you go from being
There's all kinds of ways to
sitting
divide
in
up,
one, right. So you're sitting in one perspective, but as you evolve, you become multi-perspectival. So you can see, so like blue is like conservative, like family values kind of thing. Red is like warlord kind of like power struggle. Green is more egalitarian, ecological, like kind of thing.
or just more
And so
rational.
as
Yeah.
irrational. So as you go up, you can begin to look at the world or look at the news and see the world from the perspective of each of those players. Like you can see what the Trump supporter, how they're thinking and the values they have and why they think that way, and have some empathy for understanding where that is.
Absolutely.
You can understand where the, Buddhist transcendent, like eco warrior or whatever is coming from. So like, those are like thinking about like IFS and parts in that context. Like parts, I don't know, like in some sense parts are negative because you have parts that make you not feel good, right? But in the context of multi-perspectival and integral theory, it's just giving you a broader scope of understanding of the world and empathy. I mean, in some ways parts in IFS do that too, right? But I'm just like, that brought up like the value of that multi-perspectival level of seeing the world, and how that relates to IFS and parts, right?
Absolutely.
And then, so that's part one. The second one is like I'm witnessing with my 16-year-old what happens when you don't have when you skip levels of development, right? Because they go from like purple, which is cave, or beige is like caveman, like survival, tribal,
You can't
purple
really
is
skip them.
mythical, magical. Well, so like blue, conservative, like that. Like, I'm seeing like with this generation, these kids, they don't really. There's this huge void of like fundamental like ethics and morals. Like when I was a teenager, I was in like a Christian youth group, and there was good and bad with that, but there was a very clear moral like compass. that just is absent because of social media and all these different things. And it's like, and maybe it'll come around at some point in his life where he'll get anchored in something. If he goes a little fundamentalist at some point here in the next couple of years, I think I'll be relieved. I feel like he needs to like anchor into that and then transcend it, because it's just not there. He doesn't have a value for, because Christianity for him is like sort of decayed and doesn't mean what it meant to me, right? So anyway, so looking at like people who are seemingly early, like you're not going anchoring in each of these stages, because there's a healthy level of like blue and there's a healthy and unhealthy of each of these stages. We all go through them from baby to adult, and we go through them sociologically and as well, right? So yeah, so those two things are what really came up for me, and I hadn't.
No, it's
Integral
tough
doesn't come
if you're
up a lot in
going
these
from
calls,
if
so.
you're going from like mythic to rational. That's an incredibly tough. That's really, really hard. Oh, that can be so hard, depending on what's going on. So what happens is parts get stuck. I got this part that thinks this, and I got this other part that thinks this, and they're not talking to each other. They don't care. So working with those parts is so important for me. I don't know.
So how
I
about that?
can't. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
There's I mean, what you and then Dave just elaborated on. There's just so much there, and I love, Dave, what you just said. Even that the value of this perspective. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Perspectival.
Multi-perspectival.
Yeah.
That's right. Multi-perspectival, yeah.
Multi-perspectival and integral theory. The value of that, and David was saying it gives a wider scope of the world and more empathy. And then, but just to make this real inside us, and what Jack was just saying, like the parts, can we find parts that see the world differently inside of us? Can we see that we have this multi-perspectival perspectives within us, within our parts? That we have some of what David said is blue, conservative, kind of fundamental. This is the right way. There's an answer here. And others that are red, like, no, I've got to cause it the warlord. I got to like fight for what I need. Like there's a sense of that. And others that green, a sense of this. There's this communal. There's an us, part of an us, and it's a rational. And then others that are like you described. This is mythical and magical parts that are still parts that are that. And then we might have a part that's like one level is better than the other. Well, clearly green is better than blue, according to a part, right? But can we see that it's just a part that would say that green, the communal, egalitarian, that we're all connected, is better than the sense of, well, there's certain rules and those are right and wrong. I guess I just wanted to just put a highlight on that, just having this be very real, this multi-perspectival in us of our parts. And that's all I got.
And the more you live with it, the more real it becomes for me. Yeah, the more I use that map, the more. I mean, the map's not the territory. You always got to say that about any map, but Google Maps are good.
But to the degree that it brings like awareness to what's going on, like what came up just as you were talking, Sid, is like, if I can be like, when I start that part comes up that starts to contract and feel stress about money or a decision or a family dynamic, and I can recognize that I'm so under stress. The other thing about this, like these levels or stages, is under stress you will revert back to like your previous stage or center of gravity. So like if you're green but you get under intense stress, you may revert back to blue. And so if I can recognize that I'm feeling stress about this thing in my life right now and I'm contracting, and so my ability to see multiple perspectives about my own life has just diminished, then I could say, okay, rather than like take these 3 actions to go change the world, I need to go for a walk and breathe and get back to a place of deep peace. And that, who David was before he was born, like I need to do that first. That's going to be the most strategic thing I can do.
Yes.
Because until I get back into the broader space and multi perspectives, I'm not going to be able to function well to take those 3 actions. So applying that integral theory personally into my my IFS parts is, I think that's one of the takeaways I'm getting from this. Yeah.
Like neato. It's like the world of David in using Dave's word, the world of David, the richness of that, all the multi perspectives and the wow, this and that. And then there's Dave's place of no time that David was calling the essence. And so we got you can play the foreground or background or whatever, that all that to play, but like what we're bringing up, it just makes it so rich, like this multi perspectives of all of these parts, all of this life and time.
How is it for Sid?
I'm sorry, how is it what, Dave?
For Sid. How is it for Sid?
Oh, for Sid, okay.
For me, Jack, for me. How's it for me? It's just really fun going where we're going, where David and Jack are kind of taking us on this trip into these different perspectives. And so it's like, it seems to be making the game richer for Sid. It's like in playing in that. It's like, and I have a new thing for Sid. I've done something I never did before. In the last week, I saw a movie twice in the same week at the movie theater. I've never done that. And it was the Inside Out 2.
Mm.
Has anybody seen it?
I saw
Jack
it.
seen
Yeah.
it. No, I saw it. Jack saw it.
And I saw it.
Like some people say it's based loosely on IFS and the Dick Schwartz's work, and it's like, but it's like, I get it, Jack. Like,
if you like IFS, you'll like the movie. That's for sure.
Excited about it because I'm like, what's going on with Sid? I'm working on calling it the Inside Out movie game, and I'm putting something together, like to take it in to work with teenagers or just to try to translate all this into kind of a playful way. So what's going on with Sid is I loved how in the movie, this main character, one of the main parts named Joy, he has this line. It's like, keep the best, get rid of the rest. And in this movie, there was a sense of like wanting to identify with like good experiences that then create good beliefs about us and kind of hold on to that. And that which we don't like so much, they would like send it way away to the back of the mind. And then at the end, like she realizes that's not viable. And so I guess Sid has been I've been playing a lot with that. A lot with what's it like when everything's included? When everything is truly included. Like in the movie, they just bring all these memories back, fully back. The good memories and the bad memories. Everything's mixed. What's that like? And this is kind of what we're playing, like the multi-perspectives. This is really the multi-perspectives, because in the movie there were like 1,000 different kind of little memories and perspectives. And it's like all of that comes back and all of that's included. And then in the movie, it was really interesting. It was like a sense of self, a sense of identity arose, but we can't really use the word self, a sense of for the character Sid in time, for this foreground that Dave speaks, the world of Dave, it was like the world of Sid got created by all of that formed beliefs and a sense of identity. And that was just so interesting to play with that. And this is like the hottest movie, like maybe on the planet right now, which is really interesting, right? Because for me, it's talking about what we're all playing with. And we could say that what we're doing is esoteric, but this is like the hottest movie on the planet for adults and kids. They're all going to see this. They're all using the language. They're all getting the dolls. So that's what's up right now for me.
I don't want to ruin anything for Dave if he hasn't seen the movie.
Go ahead.
No. I mean, it's sort of like if there's I've had too many movies ruined by people talking about it before I saw them, so I don't want to do that.
All right. So going back to what you said, Sid, is, keep the rest and whatever, keep the rest and discard. No, keep the best and discard the worst or whatever.
The rest, it's a
It's
right.
interesting. This week I had an experience where, a thing happened and I reacted to it. And then my reaction, I was like, fuck, am I tired of reacting that way? Right. I'm just literally tired of it. And so, I don't want to react in that way. I don't want to behave in that way. I would much prefer to be, and so then I looked at the problem, the issue, and it was with, it concerned another person. And I took I just opened up, and, my solution, instead of the old way of doing things, was much more compassionate and much more, and it was almost like a relief. I was like, fuck, I just don't want to, like, it's tiring. I'm tired of being, reacting to the world that way. And it's not like I want to be different. Go ahead.
Wait, just quick question. That there was a reaction, there was a tiredness, a reaction, and then you use the word opened up. So would that be like you kind of unblended from the part that reacted? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, kind of. I looked at it from a place of kind of openness, a place of awareness. I stepped back and just kind of opened up. And I was like, I don't have to behave that way. I don't have to react that way. I don't have to think about it in that way. And I thought about it in a different way. And then the solution was, much more compassionate and much more long-term positive. And it was a relief. And so there is something valuable in wanting to keep the best and discard the rest, to a point. Obviously, just, it's almost like bypassing, like, oh, I've got all this shit. I don't have to deal with that in my past. It's not like that. It's just wanting to not do things the same way, and being aware of why I did it, and then realizing that there's another way to approach the world from a place of openness and compassion, and I think that's kind of bringing awareness into life. It took me saying to myself, fuck, I don't want to I'm tired of this. The initial step to, like, fatigue, just like emotional fatigue, I guess is what it felt like. I want to do it this way. And then I opened up, and then it was, my way of dealing is much more open and compassionate, and perhaps a better long-term outcome.
Out of curiosity, I often think like the really wise clarity that we get, those real moments, or for some people who do like some kind of psychedelics, and they get some like real clarity that comes, or we go speak with whoever your favorite, we go speak with Dick Schwartz or whoever the wise person is in your world in clarity. We get those moments of clarity. But what if like even deeper than that could be this, I'm tired of this.
So there's there's a moving forward in being aware that there's something that you're doing to be tired of, because sometimes you're just in it and you don't even know that you're reacting, right? So you can be aware that, oh shit, I don't want to react this way anymore. But moving from that to not reacting the next time, that's a little trickier, right?
A
Like
different
how do you
reacting.
go from a right, or choosing to like not have your blood pressure go up and have the tension in your neck, like choosing to like, oh, okay, I see this, I've been here before. I'm going to step back right now and not say that thing to my wife that I would normally say when she says that irrational bullshit or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Um, that's maturity, I guess, right? But like, how do you go from awareness that I don't want to do this anymore to actually not behave, like executing the behavior next time you see it coming, if you can actually, see it coming, to head it off, right?
Yeah,
That's the question.
for me, I'm tired of this is the main or maybe even the only cause of growth. If your worldview is working perfect for you just the way it is, why would you want to change it? But if some things are, I'm kind of tired of this being like this all the time, then you might want to change. And that's what fires growth or you know,
Right.
structural growth, or even state center of awareness. Like, I'm tired of this freaking personality getting in the way of things all the time. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I didn't have to identify with his personality? You know what I mean? Wouldn't that be great? So that, I mean, or I'm tired of this space-time stuff always, holding me back. Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could step outside of space-time for a while? So for me, I'm tired of this is the cause for growth. If you don't want to grow, that's fine too, but there's always room for growth as far as I can tell. So yeah, it's a key. It's like to get rid of, okay, to think like, oh, I'm tired of this. I don't want to think that anymore. I don't want to think I'm tired. What if that part's helping you out, man? What do you? I'm sorry.
You froze. You froze like
I'm
this.
unstable. Yeah, I saw I got an unstable internet connection for some reason. I don't know. It's not.
It's all right. You're good now.
So did you want to hear what I said, or I'll just shut up?
Please, no, we value extremely what you.
What was the last thing you said? Because I don't know where I froze.
Okay,
It wasn't
you were
long.
talking about the catalyst for growth being tired of doing things the same old way, and that allows you the ability or the desire for change in how Jack, the kind of personality of Jack, interacts with the world. And you're saying that it's like I did. I'm tired of doing it this way. Might be the wonderful beginning of the mechanism of change, or you call it growth.
I went through like a list of things that you might get tired of. Like, I'm tired of these thoughts, whatever they are. I want to treat them as objects. I want to stand outside the thoughts, and I don't want to have. Or I'm tired of his personality. This personality that does it. So I want to. Or I'm tired of space and time. I want to step into the timeless, eternal now. I don't want to be caught in this. I'm tired of this sense of individuality. I want to get out of this sense of duality of subject and object. So as soon as you see those things as limiting you versus the lens through which you see the world and you can't even see it. In other words, you're so subject to some of those things that you can't even see them. They're not objects.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm saying that I am tired of this is a way to turn what you're tired of into an object that you can transcend. I guess that's one way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, but the challenge is going from having that become an object that you can transcend to actually, how do you actually transcend it? Because sometimes that just flips over and happens naturally, and sometimes you see it coming and you still react that way because you don't know how to, you know, how do you, once you get the awareness, how do you change it and consistently change it? That's where I guess
And some things are really hard, like going from a mythological, egocentric culture where I know who my friends are and I know who I hate, right, to a world-centric view that everyone deserves, you know, the same opportunity, whatever. In other words, changing those states is not always easy, but even knowing you can change it, that's huge. Just knowing it's possible, right? It is wonder. That's a first step. I don't know. But you're right. I agree with you completely. That's the trick.
In
How
this
does Sid
system,
do it?
oh, thank you. Like in this system, I loved your line, David. I'm just a simple Dave. This sense of I'm tired of this, and it's like it seems to be more organic here, just like that. I'm tired of it, and it's in this way. It's like where I live. Sometimes they step, you know, those little pricklies you step on, and they go into your foot, and then they're like almost like a hook that go in there. It's like I hate those. I hate it when that happens, and it's like and something. It's like when I go to the beach, they have this right by there, and it's like um something has just like I really don't like that. And it's like it's really careful when it walks around those areas because it's just like I don't want to have those things in my feet. And it just does it. It's like I don't even have to think about it. It's like I know I just hate that. I don't like it, or I'm tired of this. I'm tired of having to sit and take these things out of my feet for 5 minutes and then have some that don't come out. That seems to be how this works in my system. And I just it's the I'm tired of it.
Yeah, I sometimes call those wise fears, and people push back on that a lot. I'm curious what you guys think. Like, I use the stove to cook things, right? And I fear putting my hand on a burner it's on. I don't do it. It's a wise fear. Like, I fear those prickly things jamming into my skin. That's a wise fear. So people say, "Oh, fear is bad." I'm like, well, you know, there was one of those character. Oh, sorry, Dave, if I mess up, but fear is one of the things that keeps people safe, right? I mean, I think so anyway.
So what's different for this than Dave's experience of he's saying something reacted to somebody you were describing 15 minutes ago, this reaction that happened, and you're like, God, I really didn't like living in the world that way. Then it opened up and there was more compassion. And it's just like it just seems to be that. It's like, how do we change? Something gets tired of it and something prefers this, something prefers going to the beach without having to spend all this time taking pricklies out of my feet. This is David. How's this playing for you? Because you just raised like the core question. Like we can understand this. Yeah. Like hey, Jack's or the sense of green that or Jack's sense of the non-dual and integral. Like those are great or whatever. But like how do our lives change towards that? And that's like David, like where the rubber hits the road. How are you making sense of this? How's it playing in your system?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I guess it's a good co-on or question to meditate on for a while of like, okay, I'm aware of this now. How do I actually change it? Because there's some things I can be aware of, and sometimes I'm just relieved that I'm aware of it and recognize that that's progress and that's fine. That's kind of how I've been up till now. But now I'm like, well, there's some areas that are really tough where I see it and then I keep doing the same behaviors again. Like, so that gets into like, how do you actually change habits and behaviors?
I have like
So
several different ways I use. Like, one of my favorite ways came from integral meditation. I don't know if you're doing it, like where he uses the witness to witness what it's like at various stages of development.
mhm.
Uh, and he has a sort of a core sort of mindset at each level, right? And you can see what comes up when you treat those as objects. that's a way to sort of clean up levels of development. As far as helping with states of development, for me, just to, the whole thoughts thing. I mean, breathing meditation makes you aware of your thoughts. If you're trying to focus on your breath and all these thoughts keep coming in the way, that'll at least put that as an object. I have a whole list of things that I've tried and done, but they're all techniques. So it's a complicated question, and there's lots of detail in the answer. So I'll shut up.
But I got a question about what you were just describing, Jack. The sense of this witness that can be this or awareness of these different stages, right? An awareness of what it's like looking from the different stages, and then there's more an awareness of the states. That's almost like for each of us. Sometimes it's awareness of our parts, but awareness of these different perspectives. We've been talking about the what's that word that I couldn't pronounce? Multi-perspective, whatever that word is.
Perspectival.
Multiple perspectives.
It is like, but all these different, like the multi-perspectival, the different perspectives, and that's what Jack's these different stages, these green, red, and then the different states. So here's my question: is that helpful? Like when we have awareness of the multi-perspectival views, does that help us? Like, does it provide in this way like a sense of choice in the moment? Does it give a sense of like we feel less stuck in one if we can realize, if we can see, well, there are lots of different perspectives, like Dave was describing. He was kind of stuck. He was in the reaction. And at this point in Dave's life, there's such a fluidity between the world of Dave and the place of time that there's a sense of, or fluidity of being able, a sense of choice in the system. Like, how is it helpful having that kind of awareness?
So I think that's a good way to think about it. So being able to see multiple perspectives, like in your parts, right? And I'm talking about like, okay, I'm aware that I'm doing this, but I don't know how to change the behavior. If you can develop fluidity, that's where we want to go. So, okay, I can see it all. I can see these different perspectives. I can see that reaction, but the next time it comes up, I still do the same behavior. Whereas, what are the exercises or the ways that I can develop to see these 3 or 4 different things going on and then choose which one I want to go and live in? Like, so I see that I just reacted and I have this tension showing up in my body. And then I go zoom out. Okay, there's these 4 things. I want to go into non-dual timelessness right now and let all that other shit dissolve away. So developing fluidity for IFS parts, like so, like that, right? Like that's the goal, fluidity, just like between the locations. Yeah.
That's what I've been trying to practice. That's you just described it.
And also then there's also simultaneity, which we talked about in the past, right? So like, can you dissolve the boundaries between those 2 things, just let them both be true simultaneously? Kind of like the metaphor of like music and time. Like music takes you into timelessness, but music does not exist without time. It is time marked in sort of, right? So the simultaneous piece comes in, or can come in there too, which is beautiful. And I already feel lighter just talking about it.
Yeah.
And I have to go. But that's a good resolution. Thank you guys. That was fun.
David, a pleasure as always, buddy. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for taking us where you took us.
Yeah. All right,
and I think that just comes from being open and honest and real. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I'm having a very difficult time in some areas of my life, like with the teenager. But this morning I'm seeing, like I was talking about, I feel like there's this absence of a stage of development with him, with like sort of blue morals, right and wrong. But it's enabling. I like a couple times in the last couple of days I've been like, so I'm thinking about like, it's important. These things are important because they help you to have a level of energy or activate energy that's going to help you be who you want to be, enter into the space of energy. If you're doing things with girls or whatever, and with no respect for them and no like desire for a relationship or whatever, like that's going to put you in a certain level of energy and whatever. And you may meet somebody you really like and want to be with, but they're going to see all that shit in you and they're not going to be attracted to you. So it's made me think about like, how do I get to these levels of energy that I want to be at to become or live in the life I want to live? And looking at myself and going, oh, you did that, you do that, and that's really not conducive to where you want to go. So like you keep getting mad at him for you just doing the same shit over and over again. But it made me aware, oh, okay. So now it's giving me the ability to zoom out and see, okay, so you need to do this like you should, so that you can resonate at that higher frequency. So that's been a takeaway from this morning too. Just like I've been thinking about that last couple of days, but like this is like crystallized it. So yeah. All right, guys. Bless you. Have a great day.
That's a lot. This is a lot, guys. Deep, and I don't know if that is a nice close, if we're moving towards closure, or if it's closure time, or if there's more bubbling here.
A lot to digest.
Well, I would love to hear how you guys become more fluid if you do realize that there's states involved and stages involved in things, how you become more fluid in either your center of gravity or what realm you're in, or or even more stable in whatever stage you're in.
Awesome.
How do you guys move?
Dave?
I'd love to hear how you guys move around in that stuff.
Go ahead, Sid.
You want to go first?
No, you go. You go. I'll go second.
Okay. There was a little bit of an aha today for me when Jack was describing the stages and thinking about it in the states, the sense of, wow, like being aware of all of this, because that's a lot when he's describing this matrix, and like somehow like, because I have to do like, there's something about like being on the Zoom with you guys. I try to follow really like where you're going. I try to find it all inside me. And it was like, well, that was a lot to really take in all of what Jack was sharing. And then to see all of that, there was something that was exciting in just what the idea that just by being aware of all of this, being aware, clearer of it, there was a sense of the possibility of fluidity. And then when I think Jack said something about doing it with parts, the fluidity amongst parts, and there was something new to me in that with EIFS, and somehow the sense of, well, the fluidity amongst locations and levels within our finders matrix. Like I got a lot of benefit from that with the different maps. I find the maps really helpful to be able to see the maps. And then there's a sense of, wow, can I dance? Can I dance in this map? Can I dance amongst these places? And it becomes fun. It becomes a game. And so I think for fluidity, some of it is and also in being aware of whatever these maps, it helps me be able to see when I'm blended or identified with one. Oh, wow, I'm really in this blue place right now. I'm in this place of this conservative worldview of this right and wrongness of it. And I'm blended with a part. Oh, I need to be a good facilitator or something. But as I aware of all these different perspectives, as I'm aware of the multi-perspectives, somehow it seems to loosen up the hold of a particular perspective. And there's something about like having some space, being kind of back towards that place, having some of Dave's place of no time, having a little bit of that from the place of awareness. I'm aware of these multiple perspectives. If I'm aware of the multiple perspectives, it loosens things up. Perhaps not unlike this aha I had 3 years ago, that if I'm aware of two or more parts at the same time, it makes it much more difficult to blend and identify with one part and to suffer. And we can say this seems similar in a way. If I'm aware of multi-perspectives, it makes it more difficult to really identify as one particular perspective. How's that?
It's good.
Wow. So for you, it's awareness that lets you be fluid, and seeing the importance of it that will encourage you to want to do it. Okay.
It's interesting, like the way that your brain works, Jack, is very electrical engineering kind of way, which is great. Kind of no, that's great. That's really good, because you really kind of analyze and give a good perspective and a clear understanding. And so, like as Sid said, it was super beneficial to him. It was super beneficial to me, and that's you're lucky. You have a very your brain works in that way. Sort of for me, more. It's I don't always think that way. I can when I have to fix shit, right? If I'm technically fixing something, but for me to be fluid in the parts, I thought that was brilliant. Like you assign colors and locations and
it's
I
not
can
me.
see
It's
that.
integral theory. It's not Jack.
But you relate to it, and so for you you can really grasp that and understand it. And so for me, when I was describing my situation, so the fluidity in the parts came from stepping out of it, just kind of opening up into awareness, and then realizing that you would use, okay, I'm in that color, but for me, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do that anymore. It was how I reacted to it, right? Just different way that our brains analyzed and dealt with the situation. And so, and then is there a better way I can do it? And for you, be like, oh, I want to go to a different location. For me, I was like, what will have a beneficial outcome for me and for the person? And so that's where the fluidity in the part came from. Like I was, okay, that being in that part, like no, that doesn't work anymore. I'm tired of it. I want to move and into a different part. And so for me, it was like, what would work better? For you, you can actually see, the color. Okay, I don't want to be that, reactive, redneck, whatever. I want to be more of a liberal, build, community kind of perspective, whatever that color is. And so it really, just amazing. Thank you for bringing that up. And yes, there's fluidity both between, the world of Dave and awareness, but there's also fluidity within the world of Dave. Like how do I want to continue doing things the way I've always done them, or do I want to do things in a different way? And how I choose that is a different method, but the end result is still the same. So thank you. And thank you, Sid, for clarifying that for us, where the fluidity in the parts, that just, that to your Sid, you do, you're all about the parts and EIFS. And so you kind of took what he said and you blend, and then it was like, aha, oh, great. Okay, that makes sense to me.
I love how you just brought it all together, Dave. I don't have anything at all to add to that other than just taking it in. You have anything that comes up, Jack, with what Dave shared? It's like, wow.
Yeah, that's really, it was a pretty good summary of what I think's been going on. Yeah.
Could
And
that be our
my part that needs to know I'm doing the right thing so I won't get hurt. I have this part was like, oh, they're both confirming that what I'm doing is right. Oh, good, I won't get hurt. And I don't, and going back to what Jack, I'm in some color, and what you say, Sid, that part, okay, I can just move out of that. I don't need to be in that part anymore. Like that worked when I was younger, and it's good to have, like, if a deer jumps out on the road when I'm walking by, I need to have like my heart rate jump. I need to figure out if I'm going to, be hurt or, right. It's good, but I don't need to seek affirmation for doing the right thing so I won't get hurt. So being able to see that part is really great. Yeah. And so it's funny. I can laugh at it. Awesome. What an
Awesome.
amazing time. Thank you both. And
Awesome.
David, who's not in his box.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sid.